Good grand day, gems and jewels. I am your host, Corinthia Peoples, and this is Power in My Pivots. This is a space, a safe space, where we discuss how the extraordinary becomes extraordinary through the power of pivoting. You know, the definition of pivoting means the central point, pin, or shaft on which a mechanism turns. In this content, the central point are me and you, the pin or the shaft is our lives, and the mechanism is achieving our sought after goals and visions for ourselves. On today's edition of Power in My Pivot, I will be talking and sharing my thoughts of how saying I apologize to someone in a world that respects power over kindness and compassion. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Power in My Pivot. So, Power in My Pivot is a discussion. It's an unfoldment of how along our journeys we've had to continue to pivot, whether that's been voluntarily, circumstantially, or just out of sheer survival, right? It's a talk about our soul's journey and our evolution as humans and the need to change in order to for us to accomplish and acquire our sought after visions, right? So, welcome to the room. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is an inter-participatory dialogue. So, feel free to drop comments in the chat and add to the conversation. I welcome you. I welcome you. So, please do. At this time, if you would just gently tap on that like button, and if you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. I would appreciate that. And thank you for all those who've already did that. So there's a few people in the room I see. I need to know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. If possible, that would be awesome. And then I'm just going to jump right into the topic of our conversation today, of our intimate discussion, Okay, well, let's just hop into it. Power in My Pivot, gems and jewels. So, saying I apologize in a world that respects power over kindness and compassion. You know, this is interesting because, you know, we even have a show called Power featuring what's her name? Not Nia Long, but what's this chick? What's her name? These people, you know, they're celebrities. Taraji P. Taraji and the handsome gentleman. And it's all about power. It's all about power. And even in our society and even in the circles I move in and how we move, power is respected over kindness and compassion. You know, being compassionate and being kind, and even just saying I apologize, it's a vulnerable act. I want to read the definition of vulnerability to you. Vulnerability is the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. So apologizing is an act of vulnerability. We build the muscle to forgive and cultivate a state of humanity in ourselves by apologizing, especially when we know we were wrong, especially when we know our words did some harm to someone or our actions caused someone to have a meltdown or something of this sort, right? Um, Apologizing is being vulnerable, right? It opens the self portal to tenderness and communication. Now, whether our apology is accepted or not, that's another piece, right? That's an act of forgiveness. And that's a maturity piece. Because just because we said, I apologize, doesn't mean that the other person is going to accept it. And in that case, emotional maturity comes forward. It really does. Um, and especially, if we're saying we're sorry, it depends on our intention behind apologizing. So if we're apologizing with the intention to continue to manipulate, it doesn't really work. But if we're saying, I apologize with genuineness, now again, that other person has to accept your apology or choose not to. And either way it goes, you still get to work that muscle. You still get to work the muscle of being compassionate and apologizing when you've done wrong, right? This is a pivotal point, right? So as we pivot and as we change in our lives, we do not get to bypass being apologetic. We're not perfect beings living in a perfect world by any means. So at some points, there will be times when we will offend someone with our words or with our actions. And in our evolution, in our pivot, in our change, apologies are necessary. Apologizing is necessary. We have to do that in order to really cultivate the next piece of who we are and who we will become, right? So I want to share a story with you. So over the holidays, I was with family and I said some things that offended a family member. And clearly, after thinking back on what I had said, I was like, yeah, that was a little out of line and that was a little disrespectful. And ultimately, I left with ego, like, well, figure it out. You've said some hurtful things to me. So I said that. So then you figure it out. That's power. That's honoring power over compassionate and kindness. Because kindness, I had to go back and look at it and say, that's my family member. And I love that individual. And if my words cause damage, then I need to rectify that. Especially if I'm here on Power in My Pivot, talking about pivoting and change in a positive way. I have to be an example of what I talk. I have to practice what I preach, right? So I had to have that hard conversation with myself and then decide, okay, I'm going to have to apologize. And actually, there's a lot of power in apologizing. It's not a weak attribute at all. It's actually a strong attribute. It takes someone strong and someone honorable and someone with character to go back to someone and say, I apologize. I made a wrong decision and I apologize for what I said. That takes strength. That takes strength. That takes character. It's easy to just be, powerful and calculating and condescending and just moving about the world in ego, because that's what that is. That's like ego, right? So I had to go back and say, okay, I'm going to apologize to this family member because, again, I love them and I don't want my words to be swords. I want my words to be inspiration, to be flowers, to be a river that flows, not a river that stops at the rocks. I want to be that individual. So I had to go back and say, I apologize. I'm sorry for what I said. And the family member told me that, and I'm not going to call names, because, friends and families on Facebook. So the family member told me that my apology was not accepted. Straight up, my apology was not accepted because what I said was not okay. That's what they said to me. So now, if you are faced with that kind of situation, because like I said, just because you apologize to somebody doesn't mean that that person's going to take your apology. It doesn't mean that. What it does mean is that I worked humility. I worked the muscle to be compassionate, to be kind, to be apologetic, and not with my head bowed, right? Not with my shoulders shrunk, but in dignity. You can apologize and be in your power and and stand on integrity. You don't have to go apologizing with your head down, bowed over. You can apologize in your power, in your integrity. So when I was told, going back to my story, when I was told that my apology was not accepted, I then had to have emotional maturity and say, okay, you get that. The other person gets to decide whether or not the apology is accepted or not. The person that's giving the apology, me on this hand, gets to choose to honor the apology from within because it came from a genuine space, and to give myself big ups and kudos for being a big person to apologize. So actually both people get some type of relief. I get the relief of saying I apologize for what I said and working that muscle of apology in integrity, in character. That other person gets to work their emotion of setting boundaries and say, no, I don't accept it. Now, will that family member eventually accept it? Well, I hope so. But what happened by them saying, no, I don't accept it, it sets a boundary, and it lets me know that I am to never go there again with that family member. I should not go there again. So again, there's no win or lose. There's a win-win situation, right? So I want to dispel every single myth. Every myth, if there's ever a thought in your mind that's saying, I apologize, is weak. It's not. It's an act of strength. It's an act of maturity. It's an act of compassion. And also, accepting the consequences of your action is a whole nother layer of emotional maturity and self-evaluation, right? Because it's a teachable moment for ourselves. It's a moment for us to say, what was it about? What is it about me that I had to go there? Or what is it about my emotions that I couldn't frame what I said in a different way? Because see, for most of us, I think it's not what we say, it's how we say it, right? So I could have said the same thing to that family member, but in a whole nother way where they were able to receive it much better. It was more palatable. They could chew on it in a better way versus it leave a bad taste in their mouths, right? So being apologetic is not weak, it is strength. It gives us time to also self-reflect and be emotionally mature about the situation, right? So the first step, if there's someone that you want to apologize to, and like I said, apologize in character and honor. The first step is an apology is open, ball face communication. Ain't no other way to put it. And sometimes apologies are not good enough on a text message. Okay? Not good enough. If you said if the if the offense was made in person, then the apology, in my opinion, should be made in person. Now, I'm not claiming to know it all. I'm not claiming to have all the answers. I just am coming to you sharing what I'm learning along my journey and pivoting and changing and becoming an expansive, better, expressive version of myself. So, the first step is bold face communication. To apologize to someone, you got to just have some communication. And it takes strength, honey. It takes strength to say, I was wrong and please forgive me. It takes strength to say, I shouldn't have said that. I could have said it in another way. It takes strength to say, I was doing the most. I was all in my ego. Could you ever forgive me? Some people apologize with, I miss you, but never address the thing. The second thing that we can do is address the offense. Don't cover it up. Don't cover up the offense. Address it. And the only way we can address it is with bold face communication. Compassion is a thing that that is moving further and further away in our society from what I've observed. Compassion is equivalent to love. In the midst of negativity, jealousy, hate, envy, compassion and love moves all that away, honey. It moves all that away. It has to give way to compassion and love. There's an art to doing it. And again, it's not a weak art. It's a strong art to say, I'm going to stand in compassion. I'm going to stand in kindness. And it's like these forces that are unseen just swoops in and takes control. It does. That's been my experience. That's been my experience. So I want to leave you with, again, saying that apologies, apologize with your head up, your back straight, but mostly with your genuine heart. Apologize. So this segment of Power in My Pivot was simply about being apologetic, apologizing in a world, in a society that respects power over compassion and kindness. Let's not give up our compassion. Let's not give up our kindness. Let's still be those beings that we were meant to be. Because in the long run, it will rule. It does rule over all things. So thank you so much for watching. I want to go to the stream. Does anyone have a comment or would like to say something? Just type it in the stream. It could just be your comment. Just type it in the stream. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear from you. While you're typing that in the stream, I want to talk about today's health tip. Today's health tip is we offer a health tip every week. And we don't only speak about a problem, but we render a solution. And today's health tip is, if you've offended anyone, apologize. If someone has offended you, you get to say whether or not you accept their apology or not. And just know, you can accept someone's apology from a distance. You don't have to say, okay, I accept your apology and be in their face. No. You can accept someone's apology from a distance. You can say, I accept your apology from this space, from here. I'm going to be here in my space. Sure, I accept your apology. I'm going to be over here though. Or you can say, I need to think about it. I need to think about your apology. Because I'm maybe, and what you're saying is I'm not really ready to forgive. And that's okay too. We get to say those things. But the thing is that we must learn to be transparent, to be honest with each other. Don't say I accept your apology and you still holding stuff. Because that doesn't help the situation. We can simply say, I'm not ready to accept your apology. I need some more time. And if that person says, well, I take it back, and it turns into a whole nother argument, honey, the emotional maturity is not there. That's all I can say about that. The emotional maturity is not there, and you might want to reassess the relationship. That's what I can say about that. So the health tip is to apologize to someone who you know you have offended. Be in character. Be in strength. And be transparent. Have a genuine heart and say it. If you're not ready to apologize to someone that you've offended, don't say it until you're ready. Don't say it until you're ready, in my opinion. That's what I would offer. Our next piece is what inspired me. Every week we talk about what inspired me. So what inspired me this week was turning on my soul and turning off my cell phone. Yup. I was inspired by turning on my spirit, on my soul, looking inward and turning off my cell phone, like going on a cell phone fast, going on a social media fast. And that could look like 3 hours, an hour, depends on how habitual you are. It can look like the nighttime, from nighttime to nighttime, I'm going on a fast. That could be for one day. That could be a series of days that you kind of fast at night. But for me, I have to tune in and turn off the cell phone. That inspired me this week. In closing, unless someone wants to chime into the chat, this is an interparticipatory discussion. If you have something to say, if you want to add to what I've talked about today, I welcome you. I welcome you. This is a interparticipatory show, and I would love to hear from you. Power in My Pivot happens, it's a live broadcast, and it happens every single Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Central, and 2 p.m. Eastern. Let's pivot, honey, from basic to bona fide, and always remember that we are no better than nobody else, and nobody's better than us. The words spoken to me by a very wise man, my grandfather. May he rest in peace and do his work on the other realm. Yes, I have to add that piece. So be in character, be in strength, be apologetic. Do not give up your compassion and and our kindness in way of power and ego. We're human. We're made of flesh and heart and soul, and that's to be nourished because there is power in your pivot. I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining. Until next time.